right, hey everyone, welcome to SOFcast. This is your host, Matt Parrish, joined with the Command Senior Enlisted Leader of U.S. Special Operations Command, Command Chief Greg Smith. Chief, we got a pretty cool opportunity today. There's certain phrases and sort of mottos that you hear across the military. I don't think there's any of them that's more well known than Rangers lead the way,
Absolutely.
right? And so today we're joined with, as you know, the best Ranger competition happens every year, and we are lucky to have the winners of the best Ranger competition on the show today, but also in our formation as members of SOCOM. And so we're excited to jump in today. Your thoughts as you're racing back in here and we get a chance to talk to these guys.
Yeah, when you think about things like the best Ranger competition, or you just think about things about Ranger, I think
Yeah,
back to all the way back to Saving Private Ryan and
sure.
things I've seen on TV where there's something about leadership and going where nobody else can go and pushing beyond your limits, right? So the hardest things that we ask our leaders to do is really lead from the front, and that's where the Rangers lead the way kind of motto came from. And there's nobody better to explain that than our winners today.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, our guest today, absolutely showing that Rangers lead the way in the fact that Ranger Regiment and Ranger Battalion uh, got pretty much swept the best Ranger competition this year. Top 4 and number 6 had regiment winners or regiment members. And so today we're joined by Captain Josh Corson and Captain Ty Boyle. Gents, appreciate it and welcome to the show.
I appreciate you guys having us on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, congratulations, of course. Super inspiring to see as the competition was going on last weekend, seeing the results start to pour in.
Yeah.
But I guess let's start with a quick kind of background on each one of you guys of how you got to ultimately competing in Best Rangers. So, Captain Boyle, can you walk us through kind of your background leading up to hooking up with Captain Corson for this competition?
Sure. So we'll kind of start, way back quickly, but I'm from International Falls, Minnesota. It's a really small town on the Canadian border. But it's 2 hours of the closest sports event to like the next town, about 6,000 or 7,000 people, just for context on when I say a small town up there. But I'm from a large family. Josh is too. I have 8 siblings, or 9 siblings. So, growing up, I was the youngest. I was a competitive guy, always competing with my older siblings. Always had to win and didn't win that much, I guess, being the youngest one. But always trying to compete. I was a pretty active guy, just like now, growing up. So my mom, dad signed me up for every sport there was. I think I was like the only guy in volleyball camp because it was just after basketball camp, after hockey camp, after football camp. It was a way to burn off some energy. Graduated from Falls High School there, and then went up to the University of North Dakota, where I played Division I AA football.
License, yeah.
For 5 years there. I was able to get my master's done at the same time while doing my undergraduate. So same thing. I think just a lot of energy, taking classes, playing football. And that kind of led to an opportunity in 2011, again, signed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Very shortly, I joke with the guys that I have the shortest NFL career ever. It was just training camp in 2011 before I was released. So went and did for 2 years a job out in D.C. actually, where I supported travel for the Executive Office of the President as a civilian, and it was really out there when I finally got my calling. I think I knew that the military itself was always something that I respected, but I didn't do ROTC or anything in college. I was always focused on school or sports. But being out in DC, I think in our nation's capital, working with people from all walks of life, military, civilians, GWAS going on. At that point, it's been going on for 10 years. I knew that as a guy who was physically fit and a team player that liked team sports, I looked at the military, and it just seemed like that's the place I needed to get to. So walked into an Army recruiter during a lunch break one time. Went to Navy recruiters, Air Force recruiters, and finally set on joining the Army with the goal of joining the Ranger Regiment someday. Lucked out that it's a mentor that that pushed me that way, and did officer candidate school, basic training, officer candidate school, came down to Fort Benning, and really ran the gauntlet of IVOLIC, Ranger School, Pathfinder, Airborne, all in a year, and went out to the 173rd Airborne, where I was a platoon leader for a year, and lucked out that once again had a battalion commander, Pat Wilkins, who steered me towards 1st Ranger Battalion, where I came out here and lucked out, had 3 years in 1st Ranger Battalion as a lieutenant and a captain as a platoon leader in XO with a couple deployments to Afghanistan and then Iraq and Syria. So went out and commanded after that out in 4th Infantry Division, doing my charter time out there in command, and then lucked out about a year ago, assessed and was selected to come back to the Ranger Regiment. So I've been back down here in 1st Ranger Battalion down in Savannah, Georgia for about a year. I guess the majority of the last year between Afghanistan and a couple different AORs, but I'd done Best Ranger in 2019, and we had finished 4th place. That's when I was at the Maneuver Captain's Career Course, and this is a very different experience. At that point, we were going to class, me and my partner, for 6-7 hours a day, and we were just training at night. So my battalion commander, Sergeant Major, this year really wanted to emphasize Best Ranger. I'd be a guy that could help coach, or at least I wanted to coach. They thought I could compete, so started off this train up coaching guys in January and February, and I guess it was right about the end of January realized that I thought I was a pretty good competitor myself. I just stepped in the ring, so started going down to Ranger. The Ranger Regiment runs a great training program for Best Ranger guys down at Fort Benning. We were just trying to do a dislocated thing as we were just getting off of deployment up here at 175, keeping guys at home, a little less TDY. Josh was at the time, and he can talk this, but was training down there with a great group of guys for Regiment, which is how we were able to get those 5 of the top 6 slots for guys training down there. I guess I joined up that team about the end of February, end of February. So really joined up with those guys for the last month of the competition. Got paired up with Josh, who I'd known previously from a quick deployment to Afghanistan a little bit. We just kind of worked the last month to make Best Ranger happen.
No, it's awesome. Just your average, NFL route into Ranger Regiment, but
there's 3 quick ones that I wanted to just very briefly pull. And really, it's pretty hard to leave the 173rd. Anybody who's been to Vicenza or Europe knows that is not a horrible assignment either, right? So as you really gain, and if you look at the world today, I mean, the 173rd is a pretty important task force, if you will, the Southern Europe Task Force and all the missions they have. But it's a great starting point. And then the one thing you said is when you commanded, you did your charter time, right? And that's really, I think, the value of the Ranger Regiment is about Abrams Charter, and there's several others, but Abrams Charter meaning that we will build a light infantry, a regiment, brigade that will lead the Army in leadership, if you will, in a lot of ways. So the 75th Ranger Regiment prides itself in growing and providing the Army fully qualified leaders to help, go out and populate the Army. I think that was pretty important. And then the third one that I picked up on yours was, the spring training for Best Ranger competition, right? Is gaining your knowledge gleaned from the last time you did this back in 19 and how that helped you in your preparation, so both coming together, forming a team, and then having an understanding of what the mountain is to come, and then making sure you put the time in towards prep. And those are the things that I kind of took away from your short bio.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll touch on a little bit more of the kind of push and pull in and out of the Ranger Regiment and back into the regular Army, because it is a little bit different than some of our other career fields that we see across SOCOM. But Captain Corson, I want to get to you as you grew up a little bit differently in some of the previous military exposure that you had. Can you walk us through your background leading up to Best Ranger?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just honored to be on this podcast. But to start at the beginning, as I hear Ty's story, a lot of our backgrounds have a lot of similarities. I was born in Scotland, actually came over to America at a young age. My parents decided to move to San Diego, where we had a grandpa that lived there, and so I grew up in a small town outside of San Diego, one of 8 kids as well, so the youngest of 8 kids, so we had that in common. And growing up, it was learning from my siblings. It was following their path. 3 older brothers, 4 older sisters, getting beat up, getting chased around. I became a tougher kid as a young kid growing up in a small town. We played outdoors all the time. Parents worked hard. My father was a carpenter. My mother, did every side job she could do to help take care of the family. And then, as we grew up, we just grew a tight bond. And to this day, our 8 siblings, we get together, and it's an amazing time getting all the kids and families together. But sports immediately became a passion in my life. Baseball. You might think I played soccer coming from Scotland, but a neighbor happened to see me throw a baseball one day and said, "Hey, let me take him out to the baseball field." So that started my baseball career. I did that through high school into college, and that was really my motivation for college. I was going to go there, play baseball, and hopefully, play in the pros. Pros didn't work out, but I got to play 4 years at college at a small NAI school in Northern California. Played all 4 years, and I was grateful enough to have a coach, and then also I did ROTC in college to both support both of those like passions of mine. Looking to join the military, and then also to complete my baseball, my passion in sports. So just to back up a little bit, another thing that's extremely important to me growing up was my faith. My parents from an early age put us in church. At the time, it was didn't want to go, didn't want to fighting against the goads and trying to do our own thing, went our own direction, but. It was one of those things you can't ever run away from, God when He's got His hand on you. So, that was really cool going to a private Christian university and getting to really come into my own. And, that's what's been my passion even to this day, and what helps me to give me the motivation and to continue to succeed and do the best I can in everything. Went on from ROTC, I did well. I got aviation as my first choice. I really battled at the time if I wanted to go infantry or aviation. My primary military instructor was like, "Hey man, you can always go special forces. You can always do something, at your 4th year. Like, go take aviation. Why not? That sounds pretty cool." I followed his advice, and I flew the Kiowa Warrior, which was an awesome experience. Great. The community was amazing. The type of flying was everything I wanted in aviation. Unfortunately, the Army decided to retire that airframe. But for me, it was always like, hey, that's the door opening for me to do something else. So at that point, I was working for actually as a general's aide for General Kolashevsky, and he helped me to mentor me and figure out what I wanted to do. And he advocated Ranger School and some of these other programs, and that I still look at that time as a very important period in my career. Ended up getting to apply for civil affairs, and so that's kind of how I started my career in civil affairs. I put in a packet for all 3: PSYOP, civil affairs, special forces. They selected me for civil affairs. And, I went that route. It allowed me to go to Ranger School, go to Airborne School, and kind of, scratch that itch that I just wasn't necessarily getting in aviation at the time, where I still wanted to compete, and I still wanted to ruck, I still wanted to run, I still wanted to do a lot of those things at a very high level. And then always flying over some of those guys working hard. It was like, oh, maybe I want to be down there. I can't decide. Being up in the air was pretty cool too. But went civil affairs, graduated the course, and, immediately got on a team, and I was able to deploy to Niger for 6 months there in 2018, 2019. I had a great experience. My team sergeant happened to be from the Ranger Regiment, a prior Ranger Regiment guy. I forgot to mention my first stick buddy in aviation was a prior 275 Ranger. These guys were my mentors. They were the NCOs, the leadership that I needed as a young lieutenant, and they were everything I wanted to be. So coming to the Ranger Regiment was always in the back of my mind. It's something I wanted to do. Something I, would thought was the best leadership course in Ranger School, and then, to be able to go to the actual Ranger Regiment would be, a dream come true. So I always kept that in the back of my mind. Finished up my team commander time in civil affairs, and they were looking at staff, another aide job. I was looking, hey, well, maybe I could try and put in a packet to another SMU, or get a cool broadening opportunity. Didn't work out initially for the SMU, and so I always wanted to go to the Ranger Regiment, and I was able to get the great opportunity to come down to the 75th, and I worked in the ARMID, which is the Military Intelligence Battalion. And me being civil affairs, I thought it'd be a great opportunity working in another domain. I like to think that civil affairs is all about that human domain. It's about relationships, and here's something I can bring to the 75th that might be a little bit different taste and kicking indoors and doing raids that they're used to, I might be able to add something to that. So went down there, worked for a year, and then got a cool assignment where I got along well with the XO. Wives got along, and he pulled me over to the RS2 shop, and I've been working there for the past year. But it was actually in a PCS to the Ranger Regiment that, you know, the best and worst thing can happen. You go home, you spend time with family, kids play with cousins, and my wife just loved San Diego, and we thought about, you know, maybe it's time to get out. We're right at that 10-year mark. You know, maybe this is our opportunity to transition. And we started to put in our refrad packet and started to prep the battlefield with commanders that, hey, thinking about, you know, maybe getting out and trying something else. And we prayed about it a lot. Couldn't really get a confirmed answer, and eventually we talked about it, my wife and I, and said, hey, if we get a cool opportunity like Paris, we'll stay in, or a cool foreign ILE, and we'll stay in. If not, you know, we'll transition out. And you know, that's exactly what happened. We got Paris ILE as our first choice, and so we pulled back the refrad packet and had about 6 months left before PCSing. And I told my commander, hey, you're already expecting me to be gone. I've always wanted to do best ranger competition. Would you let me do it? And he said, hey, you know, you're a pretty good runner. You know, why not benefit the regiment by competing? And so, as Ty mentioned, I had initially a great partner that I was working with, Juan Bonet, who ended up getting, unfortunately, a knee injury. And Ty was kind of in a similar boat where he was looking for a partner, and we were able to marry up and start working together, and it just clicked right off the bat. His experience and our skills together, I think, enabled us to be successful in the competition.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I mean, each one of your life stories is an episode in and of itself,
yeah,
right?
100%.
I mean, just the family and sibling stories are probably enough to fill 3 hours, I'm sure, worth of just different stuff. But, you know, the similarities that I caught, and I hear this time and time again, and it's usually about part of a team, whether it's sports or something else. You grew up a hunting group, this or that, but you know, there's this sense of teamwork that happens, and then a sense of family of some sort. It doesn't have to be your immediate family, but some sense of belonging to something more than just yourself, if you will. I picked this up as I near the end of my career. I really been reflective on the unbelievable quality of the leaders and warriors that we have in our formation. And you guys definitely embody that. And then just the ability to recognize and seize opportunities along the way, right? So from working for General Kolashevsky, first of all, the OH-58 Kiowa, they should have never retired that platform, right? It was one of the best ones. When they were out, the Army was on this Lakota kick, right? And this was going to be the answer to everything. And then we went a completely different direction. So we've goofed that up. But in the meantime, we retired the Kiowa, which was a travesty in a lot of ways, because that was an incredibly capable platform. But, and, you know, having worked with the Kiowas quite a bit in Iraq, especially, very, very valuable platform. But, this takes you on the road of what is best ranger competition? I mean, like, what is it? Like,
Right.
and why is there all this train up for it?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I think is cool between both of your stories is, you know, we're blessed in SOF. We talk about it all the time. We're surrounded by incredible people. We're part of an incredible team. And there's sort of a siren call to that you want to be surrounded by others that are just as motivated, just as driven, and are willing to hold themselves to that standard and hold you to a standard, right? So that, you know, we're all working together to get better and ultimately to protect and serve the nation. So I love from both of your stories of coming in and out of SOF at different points, but continuing to sort of have that call. And as CCM said, you know, Best Ranger is one of those things that if you're listening to this and you're not in the military or whatever else, this is a competition that happens every year that is not just restricted to SOF. It's not just restricted to the Ranger Regiment, for instance, because there is a difference between Ranger School that has a little short tab versus a scroll, which these gentlemen have. There is the ability to have this competition that started in the 80s to basically have people come and compete over the course of a weekend in about 24, 25 events, depending on the year. From you all, I'm curious, as competitors, I know, Captain Boyle, you competed in 2019. What was the kind of thought for you of, what is Best Ranger and why do I want to do it?
Yeah.
Right.
So I think, maybe similarity that's also out there with a bunch of people in SOF or in the Ranger Regiment is, I think even when I signed up for Best Ranger in 2019, I'd never watched one. I never really dug into it that much, right? But what it was a competition where units were going to send their best people to compete. And so you just wanted to compete, right? I mean, like the reason why you want to go to the Ranger Regiment as an infantry officer is you want to work with the best infantry officers. The reason why you want to, do best Ranger, I think, is you just want to go put yourself up on the line with other people that have been training hard and, whose units have identified them as the best to compete. And you just want to see where you rack up. And then after that, you start doing the intelligence on, what is this event? How do I got to train for it?
Sure.
Who do I got to talk to? In 2019, when I did it, I just started hitting up every NCO, an officer that I knew that had, touched Best Ranger because they were cadre at RTB. They coached somebody through it. They had done it themselves. And I said, hey, I'm thinking of doing this thing. What do I need to know? And then you just got to be humble enough to take any advice. I think that first year especially, I had probably 10 to 11 guys that thought they were my primary coach, because every one of them we just said, hey, what can you tell us? And, we took the best advice we could get, and then we worked towards it. But it's that competitive nature that I think sends you to the best Ranger competition. Not knowing exactly what it entails, you just know that if it's going to be a hard competition, then you don't have to sign up for it and see how it is.
Yeah, obviously, if you're listening from outside, you understand as we talk about this, the arduous nature of having all of these events over a span of a couple of days without any rest, without very much food. And you're going in, you can understand, obviously, it's going to be incredibly physically demanding. But there are specific tactical skills of being able to do land navigation, being able to do some of the radios and other weapons tasks and other, skill-based infantry Ranger tasks, right?
That you don't know. You don't know what they are before you get to the
That's exactly what I was about to
station.
say. You can train as best you can. You sort of know because you can look at previous years of what was, what were day stakes, what were night stakes, what are we, what was used in the past. But it's not like this is something that's pushed out 6 months ahead of time. Like this is exactly what you're going to get tested on. So, Captain Boyle, Captain Corson, as you're getting ready and you're thinking about doing this, what were some of the things that you knew, like, okay, hey, I can prepare myself physically, but what were some of the, kind of technical tasks that you were thinking, all right, I got to get schooled up on these and make sure that I'm wired tight to be able to compete?
Yeah, there was a lot. And honestly, it was a huge motivation for why I wanted to do Best Rangers, because I was aviation.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up, with weapons in the COF all the time in the company facility, easily accessible. I didn't ruck all the time. I didn't work with mortars. I didn't work with snipers. So to come and be in the 75th Ranger Regiment, it was like, hey, now's my chance. I can get the line NCO to come down, and he's going to teach us how to operate this 50 cal. He's going to teach us how to use this sniper rifle. He's going to teach us how to use this mortar. And we were blessed in the Ranger Regiment to have in the BRC competitors a mortar sergeant, a medic, Sergeant, Sergeant Mock, Sergeant Buck, Sergeant Caballero, Sergeant Sleeve, and all of these it's almost like being on, correct me if I'm wrong, a special forces team where everyone's got a specialty, and we brought that together, and man, it was just a great experience to see guys teaching guys how to hit pocket training out on the range. Like, here it is. This is how you do it. This is what I recommend. This is what the book says, but hey, this is what we do in real life. So, some of those mortars were some of the ones that I was like, hey, I need to get my hands on that. All the weapon systems, you're doing weapons box usually in the dark under nods. So just the trying to manipulate your nods and everything like that is something that I was working on in and out. And having Captain Boyle doing 2019, an infantry officer, I was very lucky to be paired with him, and I relied on him heavily for a lot of that technical expertise. But then also we had a master sergeant that was our coach. He was deployments upon deployments, lots of experience, and he had weapons experience and go to the range, and he recommended we go out to the local ranges and shoot in those competitions. So the only one that I felt that I was good at were the ones that I could control off the bat, which is the running, the rucking, swimming. The physical ones were the ones, the obstacle courses. It didn't take a lot of technical expertise on those. I felt well. And then me playing baseball, I better do well in the grenade toss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chief, I would also just add in there too that when you don't know exactly the tasks that are going to come up in a competition. We talked earlier about the charters, but the Ranger Regiment specifically, we want to be the masters of the basics. So when we look at like the big five, physical training, marksmanship, medical, mobility, small unit tactics, like that is the stuff that we are, in the end, if you don't know the competition, like let's train physically, obviously, let's train medical. We have I honestly believe the best medics in the world are in the 75th Ranger Regiment, day in and day out. And so we get those guys out there just to stress us on the lane. And then, something like marksmanship, having great marksmanship instructors. So in some ways, as an infantry officer in the Ranger Regiment, it just kind of gave me an ability to almost be like a sergeant again, or like a team leader, and just train the stuff that Rangers should be training every single day. And that was kind of a cool part of the competition.
So you guys end up joining together kind of as a team at late February, if I'm not mistaken, right? That's when you guys kind of formed up. Partner gets injured, looking for a partner, right? So working with different groups that are kind of a Venn diagram intersecting or overlapping. So, okay, you form up. How does that work? I mean, so Captain Corson, I'll start with you, and just, okay, so you guys get together, decide you're going to be a team. Are you doing division of labor, or are you mirroring each other? How did you guys divide up or decide your approach was going to be for the train up?
Yeah, for the train up, even before we even want a team, you submit kind of your top 5 lists and you put who you want to be your partner. And I just think that's an interesting thing. I put 4 NCOs up front, and they gave me the officer. So in hindsight, I'm very grateful. I was with Captain Boyle. His experience is what was key to our success. I remember when we first became partners, the very first thing we talked about is, hey, we might not be the best technically in all these different systems. These NCOs are probably going to beat us out, but hey, we can get up on a whiteboard and we can start writing stuff down and figure out from a mental standpoint of what things are we good at, what things do we need to focus on. Let's put a calendar together. Let's talk about each and every day how we're using our time wisely, how we're getting out and putting the miles on our feet. Because at the end of the day, you can be technically proficient at all those things, but you got to get through day one. And day one's 40 miles. It's rucking, it's running, it's obstacle courses, shooting, but it's running to and from events where if you get to that event and you're huffing and puffing, you're going to be, not shooting well. You're not going to be performing well. So we knew at the end of the day that we needed to come at it from more of a cognitive standpoint and try and learn as much as we can, humble ourselves and talk to and work as a team together, but also with the rest of the teams and use their skills to benefit our skills. But at the end of the day, we needed to come together, and I needed to also learn from Ty. He had done it in 2019, and so whatever things he thought did well in 2019, let's do that. And if there's things that you can think we can improve upon, let's make those changes so we make this year, the best year.
Yeah. So Captain Boyle, I love what you talked about as far as like getting back into, hey, I'm just training because we don't know the events. We're basically getting to do Ranger tasks, right? We're getting to do what we need to be doing anyway, and we get to do it at a high level. And we're not, sometimes things like this are great because, as you said, you don't get pulled away for some of the other things, and you can just do what most of us join the military to do, right? Like, hey, I'm gonna PT all day, I'm gonna run, shoot, I'm gonna do all these things that I really, as a kid, that's what I wanted to do when I joined.
Yeah, right? I definitely shot more rounds in the last month than I did in the previous 2 years, I think, while in command, running ranges, running training, developing squad live fires with your NCOs, not getting disco and shoot a bunch of 9mm, which, what we got to do in the last month. And, I also think that, I think the first thing that I asked Josh when we got paired up, and this was kind of my mindset, maybe, having done it before, knowing what the competition was gonna be, is I just, I think we shut the door and I was like, hey, if we're gonna partner up, like we're gonna go really hard. Like I'm gonna go to a dark place, I think, at some point during this rock, and I know you will too. And for me, the biggest thing was when that happens, like we're just not gonna quit. And I think just like us having that honest conversation. I'd seen the competition before. You could be the best at tying knots, and it just doesn't happen that day. Or you could be the best shooter, and it just doesn't. You don't shoot well on the pistol range, right? But what's cool with the best ranger competition being, 30 to 40 events, or whatever it ends up being over 3 days, is you can come back from a terrible performance in an event if you kind of just let it go, and then do really well on the next one. So think my strategy, going into it was like, let's just outlast everybody. Let's try to be up towards the top of every event. Maybe we don't win, maybe we don't win any individual event, but if you do very well in every event, you're going to make yourself competitive. And Josh, we had done mini comps, our team, both as individuals and then our buddy teams before Josh and I were pairs competing against each other. And I think that was the one thing that highlighted Josh as a great partner to me, is that he was always the guy that was willing to go a little bit extra. I knew he wasn't going to quit. I knew that even if he went to, he was in pain, he had blisters, like he wasn't going to stop running. So that mattered more to me for this competition than, maybe having the guy who's the best shooter or the best mortarman or the best, name your skill set.
Yeah. So taking off out of the starting gate, what's the first kind of mishap or thing that happened along the way where you're like, and the day's about to get longer, right? So what's the first thing that happened that was unprogrammed, where Murphy's rule happens to you and you guys have to overcome? What was the first bit of adversity you had?
I'll say, the first bit was having two majors beat us out the gate on the first event. So
how did you let two field grades overtake you, right?
We had known about them, and the funny thing about them is they're both 275 guys that are over in Tradoc. So we had heard about them on the list and like, hey, watch out for these two. They're going to be fast. They may not do well on everything else because they've been looking at books for the past 6 months, but they're going to be fast. And sure enough, they beat us out the gate. But honestly, we were really excited about getting number 2 right on that sandbag carry. There was a workout of the day that was a challenging event, and so we went into the second event in second place and beat them in the water swim. So we started off great. We were talking to each other like, hey, we're doing great. Keep it up. And then we went through Malvesti, which is a series of obstacles, did well through that, and we came to the new Army ACFT, and they had talked about adding the plank in there, and historically, I've just not been that good at throwing this ball toss behind me, and I knew it's like 9.5 feet, and we did well on everything up until that point. I look over at Ty, and I'm, we're tired, we're not in our best shape, and so I'm gonna have to give it my all, and you also don't want to step over a line and be automatically DQ'd, so you're trying to be a little cautious, and I did not throw the ball 9.5 feet. And I remember looking over at Ty, and that's our first setback, and it's a huge deal in this competition, or specifically this ACFT, because it automatically puts you in a different category. Anyone who passed all the events, didn't matter if they did poorly on them, they automatically were going to be ahead of you. So we automatically got put, at the bottom of the list. Come to find out later, I think the majority of people failed an event in the ACFT, so we were okay. But we also knew we were competing against.
But you don't know that. Yeah. You don't know that at that point. You're stressing.
Exactly, we don't. Right? And we know at that point, the other Ranger Regiment teams were right next to us, and we know what they're capable of doing. And like, hey, these are the difference makers that are going to change first, second, third, fourth, or maybe even other positions. So Ty, we get to the 2-mile run, and he says, we're going to run this fast. We're going to make up that mistake. So we ran that really fast, and that was our first setback. We had several, obviously, throughout the day and later, but it kind of him, me, maybe more me than him, but we definitely had our setbacks. And Ty, I'll pass it off to you if you have another one that comes to mind.
No, I think I honestly had kind of forgotten about that one for a second, but I mean, that was the big, I guess, first setback. For me, when you talk about when does adversity hit, it's like 800 meters into the first run. So like you start running, and at that point, you kind of start asking yourself, like, am I going to do this, right? Like, you're immediately starting to be sore. I think that initial run, they hand us a Gen 3 IOTV, not something that we would even normally be wearing now. So it's kind of heavy and it's bulky. And you start running, and we're probably throwing down around a 6-minute mile pace right off the gate. And it's, it's 6 in the morning. You're still cold. You've been carb loading for 6 days, so you kind of feel sluggish. You just ask yourself, and I think that's the cool part is, with guys in SOF, I think, whether it's, Rangers or SF or one of the SNUs, like, I had that conversation in my head privately. Like, I did not tell Josh, like, man, what are we doing out here? And maybe he had the same thought, but for me, like, that was the thought. But what was cool is Josh immediately started running. And I'd always said in this competition, if I had a partner that was like pushing me on the run, like I'm going to be all right here. So Josh immediately went out of the gate hard, and I think at that point it's just you're in the races. But to Josh's point with like the ACFT failing, and maybe the reason why it already like kind of went out of my head a little bit is the key to this competition, having done it twice, and really the key to, I think, whether it's combat or life, is you're going to have a great event and you're going to have a really bad event. And
Yep.
in Best Ranger, it's really just the next event that matters. So it's 30 individual events. So you could be the worst on the first event. It's going to set you back in some placement in your time. You're at the back of the list. But if you won every other event, you'd win Best Ranger. Like, you got to let that one go, and you got to move on. I saw similar things in combat. Guys made good decisions. Guys made bad decisions. Guys got hurt. You deal with it immediately as best you can. Don't get too emotional about it, and then you move on to the next objective, because there's nothing you can do about, you can't do anything with the round once they leave the tube. So I think that's, just another reason why Josh and I were successful out there.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple things. So as Captain Boyle's talking about this IOTV, for anybody who's listening who doesn't know that acronym, basically think of one of those flak vests or bulletproof vests from the old days. That's just a really heavy vest that they're basically running, each of them wearing one, 6-minute miles. Pretty good. And then
no big deal.
If you're hearing that the ball toss thing, just think of a weighted bouquet toss, as I like to think of it. That's what we're training folks for, to make sure that they're ready for wedding season. But I love two things you talked about. The having a short memory, right? The cognitive resilience of having a short memory and realizing, like, we're gonna make mistakes and we have to come back from them. I completely agree with you that that's the key to every school you'll ever go to, but really throughout your entire life, right? And we see it in combat, see it in the Q course, see it in Ranger School, see it in every single thing that I've ever done and ever seen others do. Is it's the ability to come back and just realize, like, okay, hey, I got to focus for the next thing. Because if you're living on the past mistake, you're not ready for the future success. And I think one of the reasons that we're able to do that is the culture, right? I love what both of you all talked about there, as having a partner that's ready to push you. We all have that. I mean, I've had it in combat. I've had it in every school I've ever gone to, where you're having that internal conversation, but you look around and you don't think anybody else is having that conversation. They're still pushing, and it makes you, well, I'm not going to let them down, right? And I'm gonna get over myself, and I'm going to get back in the fight. And
that's mental resilience.
That's what gives us some of that mental resilience. I think a lot of times we think it has to only be inherent to us. Yes, we want to hone our own cognitive and mental resilience, but that team and that culture of everybody being pushing you, as you said, Captain Boyle, if I've got somebody that's pushing me on what I'm weak on, if I'm on the run and somebody's pushing me, that's gonna buoy me and snap me out of it and get me going. So as we get, into that first day, right? I was lucky enough to compete. We have an annual counterterrorism competition in Central and South America. It's like all these international called Forces Commando, right? And I remember during that time leading up to it, as you said, you're sort of the calm behind the storm. You get into the middle of it, and then it starts to wear on you, right? So y'all, the Best Ranger competition is smashed into one weekend, basically, of just a ton of arduous events. So as you get to that first night, right, you've put a ton of miles, a ton of different events behind you already, but you're only about, a third or halfway into this thing. Where does it start kicking in, where that fatigue really starts to set in and you're leaning on each other to push through? Captain Corson, we'll go to you first on that.
Yeah, that first day, yes, very nonstop for the most part. And I say for the most part because after about the first 6 to 10 hours, and I say that window because it pays to win, is a saying in the Army. It pays to win. And one of the winning benefits of being out front is you get a little more time to rest before that big night ruck.
Yep.
And that night ruck is a trophy event, kind of called in this competition. They do 3 kind of trophy events: the ruck march, the shooting event, and then the night land navigation. So historically, we think, hey, it's got to be worth a lot of points. We got to do well on that night ruck. And Ty and I, that's one of our strengths. We knew we wanted to go into that well and do well in that part of the competition. But we also knew that the day was wearing on us, and so we get into our night ruck hold before it gets dark and we start that night ruck. And that's when the aches and the pains start to come out. That's
Yep. The contemplation moments.
That's
Yep.
when I'm not feeling as good as I was hoping. My quads are tight. My calves are sore. I got a blister on my foot. When we start thinking, hey, what do we need to do to prepare? And the big thing for preparation there is eating. And it's like, hey, I haven't eaten very much today because we've been nonstop going. So like we're telling each other, hey, get that MRE in your system. Eat that meal. Have you had enough to drink? Are you putting some supplements in that drink that you're drinking? And then, hey, put your feet up. Get some rest. And I think something that Ty would say from even 2019 is, the guys that are serious about this comp, when they're like off in the corner and they're thinking about the next event and they got their feet up and they're not wasting energy. And so that was the first time, I think, in the competition, in that whole period, that we can reflect on the previous events in the day, but we can also, hey, think forward to like, hey, what are we doing to set us up for the next event? And that was that ruck march. So Ty, if you got anything for that.
No, I think that's dead on, right? You go the night or the hold before the night ruck march is really where you can look around and you see like, all right, who's serious out here? Who's gonna be able to recover off this? We get about 4 hours and then we go to ruck. I think what Josh won't tell you, so I'll say it is we go to do the ruck, and that is one of our strengths. I always said that if there's winning best ranger would be cool, but like I wanted to win the night road march. I think since I was an IBOLIC candidate and knew what best ranger was, I was like, the night road march. It's a 19-mile movement. You put a rucksack on. Like there's nothing more ranger than just like who can put on a ruck and run faster than everybody else. So personally, I want to do well on that. But I was sore in the night ruck night or the ruck hold before the night. I was trying to stretch. I think at one point Josh helped like massage out my calves. Was feeling pretty tight, and so we go up to the starting line, and we had talked. Everybody talks your strategy, and the guys who had won it the year before, they had used the strategy of let somebody run out first, and we're gonna get right behind their heels, and we're just gonna run with them the entire time.
Yep.
And so I'm thinking that we'll probably do something similar to that. Well, most of the events we went off and we were like in third or fourth place as a run, and you just kind of fit into your rhythm, and then you either pass guys or you let a couple pass based on how you're feeling. So we go up to the ruck line, and they hit the gun, and you'd see it. I've seen it in videos now. Josh just starts like running, and once again, I pride myself on being an extremely fast rucker, and at that moment, it just gave me energy. I think that to know that, like, all right, my partner's going, I'm going to go. And I think, a couple miles down the line, mine and Josh's roles reversed there a little bit, where I probably had more energy than Josh. But by that point, I think 3 miles in, one of the lane walkers told us, like, hey, you have a quarter mile on the next guy.
Wow.
And we just continued to work through the ruck march, and we ended up winning that ruck pretty substantially, actually, which is not something we would have expected to do. But for me personally, even though it was one of my stronger events, it was actually Josh's energy off that start line, which got my blood going again. So Sheila, you're talking about the cool thing about being in these type of organizations is it's in your weakest moment, somebody else is going to pick you up. And then similarly, Josh picked me up there, and maybe 30 minutes later, I'm back on my game, and he's starting to feel weaker, but I pick up his slack now. And if you can just kind of do that, the reason why Josh and I were able to do that after with only a month of training or kind of pairing up later than other people is it's the way we all train every single day in these organizations. So I think that if it wasn't me, it would have been somebody else that Josh would have been picking up in a similar way. So you kind of naturally feel and know how the other guys are going to react to this type of thing, because there's a lot of similar people in the organization doing the same thing.
Yeah. So you're on day 2, and we're nearing the end. At what point did you start to feel, hey, we got a really competitive, we're really, really competitive here, because you're getting the adrenaline pump of knowing, hey, I can see the finish line. I mean, I know that's subjective, but I can see that we're nearing the end of this, and we're actually in pretty good shape here. At what point do you get the adrenaline push from that? And how are you feeling at that point? You know what I mean? And how is that motivating you? Captain Boyle, I'll start with you, and then we'll go back to Captain Corson.
So just the I guess speed up to night 2, end of the road march night 1, we're in first place overall. They tell us the score. You don't always see the score in Best Ranger. It's sometimes a couple hours delayed. Go to night stakes, just don't do as well as we hoped we did. And so we come in day stakes in second place. And the 4 Ranger Regiment teams all chose to go to the same. The top teams get to choose which lanes they want to start first on day stakes. We all chose to go together. And really throughout the day, we were just competing with each other. Hey, here's the top 4 teams. And we looked around, we're like, if we beat these guys, we're going to do all right. But even after, day stakes in the land nav, there was no real change in the placement at the end of night 2. We were still in second place. Sergeant Cav and Sergeant Buck, a medic and a mortarman from the Ranger Regiment, who are great guys and competitors. They're my picks to win it next year. I'll just say, we were watching them, but I didn't know if we were going to have enough points to catch them. In some ways, I think I was more worried about hey, let's fend off the third place team. But you just kept on doing event by event. And then I think we were on the aircraft going from, one of the medical lanes over to the water event where we were going to do the poncho raft. We did O-course, contact kinetics simulator shoot, and then load us up on helicopters, and you're going to jump into Victory Pond. And as we're on the aircraft, I'm feeling way more energy than I remember having in 19. And I started I'm hitting up to the jump master. I'm like, hey, release this early because I want to chase in this rock. And I'm tapping Josh. I'm like, hey, we're gonna do pretty good here. If we can win this event, we're gonna be competitive. So I kind of let Josh fill in after that. But I think that was the moment on the aircraft. You're flying over Fort Benning. You're flying over, Camp Rogers. You're going to Victory Pond. And I felt comfortable. And I think a lot of guys in that moment, you're sitting on the edge of an aircraft, feeling anxious. But I think for me, it was this is what we do as Rangers, right? We do fast roping. We jump on an aircraft. I think just the comfort from training at that point was if I feel pretty good, this comfortable right now, we got a couple of events left, we can do pretty good and maybe take that first place spot.
Yeah, other than combat, helocasting into Victory Pond in Best Ranger is about as Ranger as you can get. Pretty significant area. So, Captain Corson, as you're going into that, how are you feeling going into day 2? As he's got a big smile on his face about the helocast into Victory Pond, are you feeling that energy? Are you feeding off of that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We had joked too throughout this day working with those 4 of the Ranger teams that, hey, this is mini comp 3 at the Ranger Regiment. We've been training up for the past 3 months together, competing in runs. Every day we're looking over our shoulder, seeing if this guy's going to catch me today. Every day who's getting the faster knot time, who's getting the faster Prusik climb, and we constantly competed. It just felt when we all were together in the Best Ranger, we were like, hey, this is just mini comp 3. Let's see who's going to win this one. So we knew it was going to be competitive because these were strong teams. But we also knew that, hey, we have a great chance because we've been doing well at these other events. We don't know exactly how we stood, but every time we kind of chat with other people, it sounds like that we have a faster time. Or we might even hear from the RI, hey, that's the fastest time I've heard today. That's the fastest time I've seen today. So that kind of kept giving us confidence that, hey, we don't know where we're at in the points. Maybe we're fending off third. Maybe we're on the heels of first place. Let's just keep going. Let's get this next one. Let's win the next one. We win the next one, maybe we'll hear that we're in first. And that was our kind of mantra the whole time. And I always had a personal thing to want to do well for Ty. He'd already done 4th. Hey, I'm the difference in this team here. So let's. I don't want to let him down. I want to do well, and I want to succeed at this. So the poncho raft, all of these events, it was just we're going to win this one. And really, at that point, we got to beat Buck and Cap. We got to beat these guys. We know that they're right next to us, and they're trying as hard as they can to win and shoot. Bittersweet at the end, and knowing just how hard they did work and how bad they wanted it. But we knew up until the end that it was close, and it wasn't until the final buddy run that the RI said, we're going to line this up NASCAR style, and they called out Team 37, and we kind of both looked at ourselves and said, wow, it's within our grasp. We can do this.
Yeah, and one of the coolest things about Ranger Regiment, in my opinion, besides the incredible culture and everything else, is the legacy and the esprit de corps of the Ranger Regiment, not just while you're in it, but in life, right? Rangers for life is not just a saying. The Ranger Regiment having rendezvous, having these, having coming back to Columbus for things like Best Ranger, last week we had our 35th anniversary here. I got a chance to pull aside previous SOFcast guest and Ranger legend, Ranger Rick Lamb. And one of the first things he talked to me about was you guys crossing the line at the buddy run and the second place team being right behind you guys. I mean, it was close all the way until that finish line. Talk to us about that moment as you come across and you're basically embraced for the rest of that weekend and until today, as with just all of those Ranger brothers and sisters that are just so excited. Everybody's in Columbus and you guys are ultimately victorious. Tell me what goes through your head there, Captain Boyle.
So interesting enough, how every event is an individual event and it's a cumulative event that win. Sergeant Buck and Cav actually beat us on the final buddy run.
Well, Rick told me otherwise.
Yeah, so I think it was that. So Josh and I, we go to the final buddy run, and they announced us first, the other Ranger Regiment team in second, and we line up. And I was, once again look over at Josh, and I was like, hey, we gotta go, right? You gotta win this.
Yeah.
So we take off. We know the route. They drop us off on the trail that goes through Benning out to the National Infantry Museum. Everybody knew it was going to end at the National Infantry Museum. And Josh lives a block or two from that point. So I look over and I'm like, how far is it? And we had run that a similar route, a bunch of times during training, 3 miles, a little bit over. And so we start running, which I can only assume is like a sub-6. And I'm not maintaining that at this point. I'm dehydrated. I'm trying to get spit up, just get something on my lips, but I can't. And we're in the lead and about a mile and a half in. Sergeant Buck and Sergeant Cav passed us with the majors, Blanchard and Tenacity. And so we're in third place. And I think at that point I was just trying to hang on. Josh was stronger at this point. They, it's an Army event, so you have to think about safety. So they have some water jugs at the mile and a half mark of the 3 mile run after we've just moved 70 miles. Nobody in their right mind is going to stop to fill up a water source, on a 3 mile run. But I thought about it for a second. I was like, I may need this to finish. Then
Maslow shows up.
I think about about 2.5 mile mark. Maybe once again our role switched a little bit. All of a sudden I was trying to pick it up, I think, for a kick at the end. And Josh, I think at that point, had just carried the team for the last couple of miles. So he was I think, getting tired. But anyway, so we crossed the finish line in third place, knowing that they probably got first, maybe second, and just wondering if we had a big enough point spread to win.
Yeah.
I hit the ice cooler immediately. When you finish, they have the ice bucket that nobody ever uses in training, right? Well, I used it. I got my shoulders deep in the ice bucket, trying to take down electrolytes, and then it is pretty cool. There was a sergeant major out there that was the first sergeant in my unit, 4th ID. Friends that had traveled from 175, peers that were at 375 now. That were out there. You have the legends of the Ranger Regiment showing up, and it, kind of one of those surreal moments for us where we didn't know if we had won that way. We didn't actually know officially that we had won for about 45 minutes, an hour later, after they bring us to the National Infantry Museum. They have us start doing an AAR, and then they line up the teams to walk out to be announced. So I think it was the first time that we officially knew with us. So that is not the way Best Ranger competition usually goes. Usually the teams know pretty far out. I think last year, even really night 2, they knew that they had pretty much statistically won the competition. For us, which I think was a cool thing for the Ranger Regiment and for us, is that we were competing against guys in our unit, guys that we had trained with, that we respected. And I think, I talked about my sports background in college, and I've seen a lot of cool sporting triumphs. I still think that Sergeant Buck and Sergeant Cav beating us on that 3 mile run was one of the gutsiest sports performances that I've seen. They let it all out there. And I think that's why, Josh, it was kind of heartbreaking, I think, for us to win even for a little bit there, because like we respected these guys in their efforts so much. But that was a cool part of the competition too, that we all totally left it out there. And so to when you're done, it's really just feeling like, all right, well, it's over. Like, I don't have to do that again. And a little bit, I think, at least for me. Sorry, that was a long answer, but
no,
kind of tie it all together. I mean, there was no like, hey, we just won Best Ranger moment at that point. It was man, I'm glad this is done, and I hope that statistically, or in the points total, that we held on, and I guess we won by 2 points, which out of I think normally a 2,000 point spread is a extremely small margin.
I know that's what Rick and I were talking about, of how tight it was in this one, which is such an aberration to normal. Josh, first of all, shout out to the National Infantry Museum as well. Phenomenal museum. Anytime you're anywhere near Fort Benning, go check it out. I mean, amazing history from not just the Ranger Regiment, but across the infantry. They do a phenomenal job up there, and they do so many events. We went up there for Colonel Puckett's Medal of Honor banquet. I mean, just phenomenal stuff that's going on up there at Fort Benning. But Josh, for you as an aviation guy and then a CA guy and sort of a later import into the Ranger Regiment, at that moment when you're in the National Infantry Museum and they shuffle you all around, and it's sort of, now you've gotten your breath back a little bit, and it's almost 45 minutes, an hour later, how'd that feel, walking out there to all these Ranger legends, and you and your partner just won Best Ranger?
Phenomenal. Yeah, no, I'm still in awe and pinching myself, and just amazing that it worked out the way it did. And I can't help but thank God to weave in all those kind of crazy turns and seeing it, kind of looking back now to see his hand just in a lot of it. And I'm so thankful for that, seeing how it all worked out, from being, as you said, an aviator, always having to be a dream. Civil affairs has been amazing to me, and I'm so happy to be in that regiment, but for them to give me the opportunity to kind of, as a broadening time to come down here and learn that I'll bring back to the Civil Affairs Regiment, just to represent them, represent the Ranger Regiment. As you mentioned, Colonel Puckett was out there. David E. Grange was out there. We got to take pictures with them, see these legends. And to think that they are looking up at us and congratulating us was humbling experience. And then the other Ranger Regiment teams, knowing how hard they've worked, seeing all of it kind of come to fruition, it was very, very special. And then my family, again, 8 siblings, you can imagine how excited they were, messaging and praying and congratulating. And to see my parents were able to make it out, being, again, big family. They didn't do a lot of that as a kid. They couldn't go on vacations. They couldn't come to baseball games or even the Army. So to have them come and see that was special. And just, taking it in, still thankful for the opportunity, grateful. And I, again, can't believe that we were able to pull it off, even though, I think we knew from the start that we would be competitive, but to actually win it is a special time.
Yeah. So my last question, as we kind of get short on time here, is what point, Captain Boyle, I love your point about, thank God it's over right at that point, but how long does that last before you start thinking about next year's Best Ranger competition? In your mind, it's a vicious cycle, isn't it? But so how soon after you finished did you already start thinking about next year?
So I think lucky for me that because we won, I'm feeling pretty good about. I've heard a rumor that past competitors are not going to be able to compete again in the future, which I think would be all right with me. I think. Yeah.
Are you good, or you're like, I'd like to do it again?
Well,
at what point do you have
the problem is, Chief, is that like if a competition's out there and you get challenged, you want to compete. I think that for me, I got some other competition. So I mean, this evening I'm actually going to go do a bike crit up in Spartanburg. So I'm already with the team. Reese Hudgens is the guy who got 6th. The taxi is on our bike team, and we're going to go and compete up there in the crit. Our Sua Sponte bike jerseys on. So another competition is right around the corner. I think, as I look at it, I didn't realize, I don't want to say how big of a deal winning Best Ranger was, but I think more important to me than even that moment in the National Infantry Museum is I've been amazed coming back to my battalion where I go to the Tuttle Clinic and I'm just, doing a physical blood work draw or something. And there's privates who I know they're Rangers, but I can't exactly like put a face to them. And they're coming up and like, sir, congratulations. Like, that's awesome. Like, we're so proud of you, And so from an organization where, I said this, I think when I left as a lieutenant, and it's true today, is every day I go to work with somebody smarter than me. They shoot better than I can. They're faster than I am. They have better leadership philosophies than I do. And I think every one of us can probably say that in our own organizations and stuff. And like, that's a very cool thing. So, I don't think I'm ready to compete next year, but I've already identified guys in 1st Ranger Battalion that I've told, like, I am all in coaching you so that you can come out here and do that. And really that was the goal when, my BC and Sergeant Major decided to give up one of their few branch qualified captains, staff officers right now, primary staff, to go train and do something like this if they wanted it to help instill a little bit of competition in the unit. And so I hope that, if I just motivated a couple, young Rangers to want to do this next year, then I will give everything I got to help coach them. And so that hopefully they win it next year. That's kind of, I think, how I walked away from it.
Yeah, maybe you can actually get to coach this year, which you thought you were going to get to do this year. No, it's incredible. And, as we draw our time, what's cool about this is that this is unlike your career growing up, ending up in pro sports, and then for you, Captain Corson, in collegiate baseball as well. It's not just training for this competition. I mean, this is in and amongst both of your careers that we could have spent, had you never gone to do Best Ranger, we could have spent an entire episode just talking about leadership lessons learned and things you learned over multiple combat tours, over different schools and things like that. Both of you as distinguished honor graduates of your as your bullet classes, like, how do you now think of this? And I know it's very recent, but how do you think of this translating later, being able to use some of these lessons of, the ability to work as a team and all these things? How do you think that shapes you going forward as a leader, as you continue to lead in the Army? Captain Corson, I'll go to you first, and then over to Captain Boyle.
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount to learn from this competition, and not just from the competition, but everything that led up to the competition. And what I mean by that is, picking a teammate. That's so important in life, and picking teams, who you're going to work with, but also, your spouse. How you work with your spouse. And my wife was amazing in supporting me and balancing the time to be away, and kind of go back to the previous question. Now is my time to support her whenever she wants to do. She gave up 2 months of her time to let me go to the range and do that kind of thing. So now my time to support them and the kids. And so learning that balance, I think, is really important, of how to go out, work hard, spend time with your partner, but also know that, hey, my kid's got a baseball game later this afternoon. I gotta prioritize. I gotta balance. I gotta make sure I manage those things. I can't be 100% in one and zero in the other. So that balance is something I want to share with with my teammates and bring back as hopefully a company commander in civil affairs here soon. But also that drive to compete, the drive to win, the drive to push yourself, even when you're you're hurt, you're tired, you're sick, you're sore, and that never give up attitude is something that will go on from this competition. And then learning from your partner. You got to be a team player. You got to be a teammate. You got to be one that realizes you got strengths, but you got weaknesses too. And your partner may have different strengths and weaknesses. So, coming up with a game plan of how you're going to work on those, but how you're going to utilize those strengths and weaknesses. And then kind of the last thing is those technical skills. You come out of here very proficient in some things. I don't want to lose that. I want to bring that back, and I want to emphasize that when I get to my next unit or back to the civil affairs. Of let's be the best at these things. And hey, when there's a competition and we can put ourselves on display, let's represent ourselves well, and let's give it our all, and let's win.
Yeah, 100%. No, very well said. Captain Boyle, over to you for kind of last thoughts on transferability. If he left you anything, I don't know. Yeah. That was a pretty good one. Go ahead.
No, I think that what this competition really did, and life has a weird way of like putting opportunities around you at the right time. So I think things that I find just in my life to be the true like character pillars. I think of things that I find important, whether that's the idea of bad things are going to happen. let it go, move on to the next event. This competition happened, right at there's some personal things going on that, the world can kind of seem down at some points, but then, as long as you just kind of move on and continue to go, like, you can be successful. That was just re-emphasized, I think, through this competition in my own life. I think that, the idea of, for me, I had a pretty short train up, honestly. I wasn't running a lot of miles in December. A lot of guys have, do 80 to 90 mile weeks in September, October, November to build the miles to do this. I kind of the opposite of approach. I was going through some potential arthritis stuff in my knees. I'm 34. I used to be a 300-pound football player, so I got some physical stuff, but I was able to train up on this, I think, as I reflect back, because every day, for the last 9 years, I've trained for these types of events. I didn't need a large train up because this is, we have great strength coaches, a dietitian at 175. I generally try to, eat right, generally try to, live a healthy lifestyle, and I stay active so that when, I got a call for this competition, but it could be a deployment later on or something else, physically and mentally, we were ready to accept the challenge. And so I think that this, the competitions, I look back at it, just reemphasizes, like, continue to do the things in your life that you think are important. Be prepared for the next opportunity that's going to show up. And then, like Josh said, I owe a lot of time back now to my wife. We put off, because of COVID and whatever, a honeymoon for over 2 years now. So we're about to go. We have 2 weeks of block leave coming up in a week, and we're going to take all that. And I'm just going to spend some time back, giving some love and some time back to my family too. So.
Both very wise men, very wise men.
Well deserved.
Yeah. Hey, on behalf of General Clark and all of us here at SOCOM, first and foremost, congratulations. Right, you two gentlemen epitomize what we continually talk about, the positive culture that we have here in U.S. SOCOM, across the formation in USASOC and the Ranger Regiment, that talks about diverse backgrounds with different life experiences that bring that together to forge and form a team to do seemingly impossible tasks and to do them well. So on behalf of us here at SOCOM, thank you for demonstrating what right looks like and what leadership looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Gentlemen, between physical, mental, spiritual, social, and family resilience, you guys hit all the marks. And it's incredibly inspirational to us to be able to talk to you all and to serve with you. But I know it'll be inspirational, for our listeners as well, as they've seen not only your triumph, but to talk about some of those things where it's not all a walk in the park. So really appreciate you all letting us talk through this with you, and really appreciate you joining us. And for everyone that's out there listening, really appreciate you joining us for another episode of SOFcast. You can find us obviously at any of the different platforms, Spotify, Apple, and all those things. If you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe, and go ahead and give us a 5-star rating while you're on that, so other folks can find it. And if you would like to reach out to us, SOFcast@SOCOM.mil. Chief, over to you for final questions.
No, I leave more inspired than I walked in this morning.
Yeah.
And it's because, again, the formation is surrounded by great men and great leaders and great men and women, but great leaders like these two captains right here. And it's demonstrated every day. So.
Absolutely. Well, both of you, thank you for joining us. All of you out there, thanks for joining us for another episode of SOFcast.